How does one determine how good a protagonist is in a show? Is it determined by their relatability or their character development? Is it their backstory? Is it their motive? Well, the answer may differ from person to person. I believe that a good main character doesn't necessarily have to be bound to these criteria. A good main character doesn't necessarily have to have some grand motive or some sad backstory. You don't even have to relate to the main character to consider them good. A prime example of a protagonist that seemingly defies this criteria is Yusuke Urameshi. Yusuke doesn't have a sad backstory or some grand motive, and it's quite hard to relate to him if you're Delinquent. What he does develop as a character isn't as profound as other protagonists. If we were to look at Yusuke from these criteria, he seems like a rather average protagonist. Although a fair amount of people who watched Yu Yu Hakusho can agree that Yusuke is a good main character. Why is this, you may ask? The answer is quite simple. Yusuke is an entertaining main character and rates a level of heart that bypasses the use of simple criteria. Describing Yusuke's character is quite simple. He's a hot-blooded delinquent who likes to get into fights but also has a kind heart. He frequently skips classes to go onto the roof and gets into fights with people from multiple schools. Most people are scared of him for a good reason. He's incredibly strong, could be abhorred of people with little to no effort. He doesn't spend time studying and really just does what he wants. There is no deep backstory behind his character and he doesn't really have a motive. He's simply just doing what he wants to do. I think Yusuke's character is so likable because how simple he is. Yusuke is a character you feel close to. He's entertaining to watch and is also a genuinely nice person. Has literally died to save a kid from a car, something that nobody expected him to do. And he wants to save a cat from being hurt by bullies. He cares about his friends deeply, although he doesn't know if he show it. He's brass, has solid vocal comebacks, and his wild energy just resonates with the viewer as they watch him scream "Spirit Gun." Well, I watched the sub, so for me it would be Ray Gun, but I think more people watch the dub than the sub, so we'll go with that. I personally think that Yu Yu Hakusho's sub is better than the dub, but dub was great regardless, so I have no complaints. Well, I went to a tangent there. A good main character doesn't necessarily have to be thematically genius written, they just have to be a main character you enjoy watching. A proper way to convey how entertaining Yusuke's character is by looking at his character moments. One of the first things that come to mind is when he flips off Toguro in the dark journey. His overall smug and cocky attitude really shines here, as despite being humbled by Toguro in the beginning of his arc, he still has the pride to flaunt off to him regardless. His reckless nature shines whenever he really communicates to Keiko, or if he lifting her skirt constantly on behind it, we can really just tell how brazen Yusuke really is. I won't discredit just how much Yusuke's character developed, however. Only after he died does he realize how much people actually care about him. He also becomes more mature as the story progresses through his Sensei arc and Three Kings arc. However, throughout the entire story, he still maintains the key point that make him so likable, whether it be his incredibly sharp tongue or the tough kindness he shows to people. Yusuke is entertaining to watch regardless if you can relate to him or not, and that definitely makes him a very memorable character. That's not to say Yusuke is the only main character that radiates this type of energy. He's just the main character I can talk the most about that I can think of off the top of my head. Jotaro from JoJo's Bizarre Adventure also radiates this type of energy, though I believe that Yusuke does it better. The reason we don't see as many characters as Yusuke and Jotaro is probably because of how hard it is to pull off properly. It's a very subjective matter, and so if the character doesn't really connect with a person, the main characters end up being bland. I'll take an example of this is Ichigo Kurosaki. He doesn't really have a grand motive. His only motive is to protect the people he cares about, which almost every shonen main character wants to do. He does have the backstory of his mother dying to protect him to amplify his motive, however his character doesn't really escalate anywhere from there. He has the same character archetype as Yusuke, a hot-blooded but kind delinquent, however the delinquent aspect has dropped fairly quickly. The first time Orihime met Ichigo, for example, Orihime was scared of him because of the way he looked. The first time Ichigo met Chad was getting bullied, so Ichigo beat up the bullies, showing his tough yet kind nature. However, right after the first few episodes, Ichigo's delinquent nature disappears and he obtains a hero-like persona. This persona appears quite a bit in the anime, so it isn't really the best thing for his character. I'm not saying Ichigo's character is bad, it's more like he's a bad imitation of Yusuke. Of course, I'm only talking about anime Ichigo because I've read the manga, but without any real distinction in his character to set him apart from his competition, it becomes really hard to put him above anyone else. Luffy wants to become the Pirate King, but to do that he needs a crew, and so he needs to become strong enough to protect his crew so they can help each other. Naruto wants to become Hokage to be respected, but to be respected you need people to respect you, meaning you have to have people to protect, which is why he became so protective of his friends and clan. Ichigo has childhood trauma that makes him protective of his friends. At first, his character does seem interesting, but when you realize that the trauma part takes the backseat to his story after the first few episodes, then you have a whole anime about a boy simply trying to protect his friends, and which to me, makes him less interesting. The reason I compare him to Yusuke is that he too is only moving because of the plot, and so you don't really see much about him besides his cockiness and desire to protect his loved ones. However, that cockiness is an aspect no other shonen protagonist has been able to properly replicate, and that's what makes him stand out. And as I stated before, Ichigo's delinquent style was pushed aside soon after the series began. but they never gave him anything to set himself apart from others. At the beginning of the show, people thought he was weird because he was always talking to himself, when he was actually talking to ghosts of people who had passed, as he had a mysterious power to see them. This had been an interesting concept to build upon, but it was also dropped soon after the show began. Ichigo lacks a level of individuality. One of my favorite moments of him was when he first met Grimmjow. He was being destroyed, unable to do anything about him, while Grimmjow was just toying with him the entire time. He was completely outclassed in every way, shape, and form, but when he unleashed his Getsuga Tensho and saw it did good damage, he smiled and started to talk trash back despite probably being a one-time thing. That made his character more fun to watch, but instead of Ichigo's ability ever shown in the series, and it's a shame because it adds more character to him. I don't hate Ichigo, but I do think he could have made better choices of his character, along with better choices of the whole series overall, but that was a video on its own. Yusuke is the prime example of how his character could have been, and I just feel the shift in attitude would have made him a lot more enjoyable to watch, because as previously stated, Yusuke proves you don't have to be a complex character to be good. Anyway, that was me stating why I like Yusuke as the main character despite him being a very simple character. I would love to hear your opinion about this topic in the comments below. Well, that's it for the video. See you in the next one. Peace.